Hey guys, my name is Shai and this is Evermind Astro. This video is about Black Moon Lilith in Pisces, okay? This one runs, because Pisces is always so complex and it is always one of the hardest things to articulate because it is essentially the inarticulable truth behind everything, right? It is the unconscious, it is the void, it is the divine mother, it is the ocean of consciousness. It is all of these things and none of these things and other things all at once. And Black Moon Lilith in Pisces, it can play out in a few different ways. It can be deeply spiritual, it's all deeply spiritual, but you might not see it that way. Although those of you watching this with Black Moon Lilith in Pisces placements or 12th house are likely, I would suspect, to see this as a spiritual thing because you're here watching this video. But other people with Black Moon Lilith in Pisces, they will actually be so turned off of anything spiritual or supernatural or mystical or unknown or unconscious or any of that, that they would never be able to approach this conversation really, because Black Moon Lilith in Pisces, one of the ways it can manifest is essentially being so terrified of the unseen world, of the unknowable world, of the invisible world, the mystical world, and even your own subconscious. They can completely reject that entirely and become and take refuge in their own mind and take refuge in what is logical and seeking scientific and logical and rational and even medical and biological and neurological explanations for things. And of course, that I think is a really great thing. I love all of those things. I love logical, rational, medical, biological, chemical explanations for things. That is all really good. And that's actually a pretty good example of why we all have these different wounds and we all have these different things that we fear and these different things that we reject, because in some way, shape, or form that allows us to explore and create something that needs to be explored and created. So it's, again, totally fine if someone with their Black Moon Lilith in Pisces completely rejects spirituality, because then that's going to take them on this path of, this path of the mind. And that is an important path for everybody to walk to some extent. And some people will inevitably walk that path much more deeply than others. So, but those people aren't watching this video. So for those of you watching this video, or maybe that used to be you, because of course the way Black Moon Lilith manifests with these opposite reactive things, you can follow one path your whole life, or you can flip-flop back and forth, or you can move from one long-term to another long-term. So some of you, or some people with Black Moon Lilith in Pisces, can end up having a deep and unexpected spiritual awakening at some point in their life. This could be triggered by a near-death experience, by some kind of mystical encounter, a mystical experience that is so vivid, so visceral, and just it might have different things about it that the person becomes unable or perhaps unwilling to write it off with, oh, it was just a hallucination, or oh, it was just a dream, or oh, this and that logical explanation. There actually comes a point with rationality, where it becomes irrational to try to rationalize something. If you know what I mean. If you're a very, very rational person, right, who's always going, there's got to be a mundane explanation for this supernatural phenomenon. At some point, you got to go. It's like you have this breakthrough kind of moment, and you go, whoa, what if the only rational explanation here is to believe that something supernatural is going on? And then you've broken through to this whole other realm of logic, this whole other realm of reason, going, wow, what if the spiritual world has a rationality to it? And what if these mystical experiences can be understood rationally if I just allow my mind to enter the what I previously considered to be the irrational area. Does that make sense? Hopefully you guys kind of know what I mean. It's a little hard to explain, but it's like, imagine somebody who kept seeing synchronicities, right? Synchronicities just started coming out of everywhere, and the person just kept seeing, yeah, you know, it's confirmation bias, and yeah, it's probability, and just kind of writing it all off, because constantly finding ways to just explain it, you know, rationally and logically with a mundane explanation, and to the point where, wow, like this is getting to the point where there's got to be some higher level of explanation here, because this just doesn't, this doesn't make sense anymore, and it doesn't make sense anymore to continue to rationalize all of this in the way I was doing previously. So really, there's this huge potential here to have this breakthrough into higher levels of belief and higher levels of cognition, higher levels of reason, which is really interesting because obviously, like, I'm talking a lot about logic and reason, and that's not really a Pisces thing, but what that is that's Virgo, right? The opposite of Pisces is Virgo. And with Black Moon Lilith, you can find yourself wiffle-waffling between the sign of your Lilith and the opposite sign, because she reacts, and she can react very violently, right? So my point here is that there can, for many people, have this, it's like a fear, right? Some people with Black Moon Lilith can have a mystical experience that might possibly take this on them, that might take them on their own spiritual awakening, but they can even reject that simply out of the terror, right? The terror, because you can feel like I can't even approach this, right? That mystical experience was so terrifying, I can't even approach it, and they can retreat back into it. Or, you know, that can be the moment of awakening, or it can be the moment of retreat. But I think eventually, like, if you were to live, you know, human lives are short, right? But if you were to live long enough, eventually you would get to the breakthrough with this, and you would have this deep spiritual awakening. Of course, even if this isn't playing out like in a deeply spiritual way, like in an overtly spiritual way for people, then it's usually in the realm of creativity and emotions, right? Creativity and emotions, or just chaos, right? Black Moon Lilith in Pisces, or the 12th house, can have this like deep fear of chaos, and that puts you back into Virgo space, right? Of trying to micromanage and control out of a place of being afraid of chaos. Chaos can feel deeply threatening to Black Moon Lilith in Pisces, especially if your chart happens to have a bunch of Virgo or a bunch of 6th house, or just other like air energy, earth energy, that kind of stuff, right? That makes you want to organize and be safe. You can have this deep fear of the unknown, a deep fear of chaos, and even a fear of emotions. And there can even be like a fear of death with this, right? A fear of death. You can be like really morbid, and I know people with this placement who were like convinced at a young age that they were going to die of a heart attack, even though they have had their heart checked out by a cardiologist and got a clean bill of health, and even though they were young and well below the normal age of having a heart attack, you can be convinced that you can have this morbid fear, this morbid fixation about like, I'm gonna die, nothing is safe, like the unknown, the invisible, the chaos, the horrible, scary unknown is like coming to get me, right? It can definitely manifest as that way. But in terms of like emotions, some people with this can have really actually chaotic and turbulent and like just like emotional mess going on. There can be a crazy emotional mess going on, and that can cause this person to sometimes like succumb to that and kind of be an emotional mess. But you can also react to that and essentially find ways of stuffing down your emotions or cutting off your emotions in different ways. But with this placement, that's not really going to work very well. Ideally with Black Moon Lilith and Pisces, you're going to find a way to explore and express your emotions in some kind of creative capacity, you know, painting, writing, game design, acting, cooking, literally anything you can come up with, right? Literally anything you can come up with that feels like you're channeling your emotions into a creative outlet. It's going to be really, really good for this placement, especially for the people who don't like who aren't into spirituality, right? For some people, I mean, because it's not like we all need to be spiritual, right? That's just it's like I really see spirituality as an interest in a hobby. Like, you know, when you say like I'm a spiritual person, I'm really, you know, I'm always walking my spiritual path and all that. It's basically a way for us to understand our journey and a way for us to think about it and to experience it and to wrap our lives with it, right? But not everybody needs to live like that. But so for those people who aren't interested in having a spiritual kind of like existence, art and creativity, right, is going to be a really important outlet. So I don't know, if you happen to know somebody with this placement who isn't interested in spirituality, if you could somehow convey to them that, you know, creative exploration, art, and imagination, and this even includes simply taking in fantasy, right? Like reading fantasy novels, playing video games, watching fantasy shows, right? Whatever it is, playing D&D, whatever it is that you're into, exploring the realm of fantasy, exploring the imagination is going to be really therapeutic for this placement, and I would say even essential. But of course, there is going to be a subset of people with this placement who will just reject that entirely, and they might have to go on a whole process of, you know, coming back to their emotions, coming back to their creativity, and all of that. So where else do I want to take this? There's something else here. Grappling with the uncertainty and grappling with the enormity and grappling with the immensity, like, of everything, right? Of consciousness, of the entire universe, and really beyond this universe and the unconscious itself. You really here, you could, I don't know, you could be into Carl Jung, right? You could be into exploring the unconscious in other ways. You could be into doing psychedelic drugs or taking various types of plant medicine, right, that helps you explore this. Unless you've had some kind of life experience that, or you have other placements, right? It doesn't have to, because it can come from a life experience or it can come from other aspects of yourself. Unless you have something in the chart that includes this placement that kind of shepherds you on your creative or spiritual journey, right? It could be a near-death experience. It could be maybe you just were brought up in a spiritual environment. Maybe you have some other thing that triggers a spiritual awakening for you. If you don't have that, you might find that it becomes like a struggle to open yourself up to your own spiritual experience, right? And if you find yourself that you haven't had any major triggers with this placement, like, although this is interesting, this is very interesting. So Neptune has been in Pisces for fucking ever at this point, and it's going to still be in Pisces for another couple of years. So you guys have all either already had Neptune transit over your Black Moon Lilith, or you're about to, like, right now at the time I'm posting this video. And if you're watching this a few years down the road, well, then you have recently, you know, sometime in the last decade or more than a decade. I don't remember when Neptune went into Pisces. It was like 10 years ago at least, I think. Anyway, so having an outer planet transit your Black Moon Lilith, that is serious business. And so you guys have, you've had Neptune come along, and Neptune is, of course, the modern ruler of Pisces, and it is so about the unconscious and about transcendent spirituality and all of this. So, and I know someone with this placement, and when they had Neptune transit over their Pisces, it was like, bam, here's the time to have a spiritual awakening, right? And they had to confront really deep fears about the fear of death and the fear of the unknown, the fear of chaos, the fear of emotions and spirituality and just all of it, right? It was this big confronting thing. But of course, like, Neptune transits, they go on for like 2 or 3 years, depending on how sensitive you are to it, right? Some people, you'll only notice it when Neptune is like really close on your placement. Others, it will bleed out for a long time. So this has happened to all of you because of, you know, the recent Neptune transit and the ongoing Neptune transit. So I think that high chance that you've all already been triggered by Neptune. You've all had your Black Moon Lilith triggered by Neptune, or you are having it literally right now, because Neptune's getting really close to being done with Pisces. So it's like, welcome to the other side, right? Welcome to the other side. You have been through this Neptunian Piscean initiation, and you might be surprised, some of you, to look back to, you can look up an ephemeris on astro.com and you can find a chart that tells you when Neptune was transiting through what degree. And so you can apply that to your birth chart and find out when Neptune transited over your Black Moon Lilith in Pisces. And then you can figure out what was going on in my life like around that time, and be very broad with it. Take it like a year, 2 years, 3 years, because Neptune will retrograde over your placement, right? This is a long-term bleed. So you can figure what was going on in your life at that time, what was being brought up for you, what were you afraid of, what were you working through, what kind of shadow work was it, how were you being expanded, how were you being invited into a deeper universe. And you know, this can include a big breakdown in your life, but it can also just include a big like fear-facing and awakening, an eruption type of moment. So really, I basically see this as a really deeply spiritual placement. And as you are working through this, right? Some of you have maybe already worked through it. If you have Black Moon Lilith in, the early degrees of Pisces, and you had the Neptune transit several years ago at this point, you have maybe had the opportunity to go really deeply on your Lilith journey and heal a lot of her baggage. And now you're at the point where you're like a spiritual master, right? Others of you still working through it. It's like, just keep going with it, okay? Just keep going with it. Keep exploring, keep feeling all of the feelings, and keep facing those fears, because the highest potential of this placement is actually the complete embodiment of unconditional love. So many shivers on that, right? So many shivers. I feel like tears in my eyes, right? So this is the complete embodiment of unconditional love, where you can look at literally anything, any energy, any entity, any being, any act, anything, any thought, anything that exists in all that is, and see it with the eyes of unconditional love. And more to the point, like, feel it from the heart of unconditional love. And you guys, perhaps you have a long journey to walk in terms of practicing forgiveness, self-forgiveness, forgiveness of other, whatever, until you get to the point where you realize, I never needed to forgive anything, because there is actually nothing to forgive, right? There is nothing to forgive, because from the place of unity consciousness, again, this is all the highest frequencies of Pisces, right? So good. It is unity consciousness at its deepest, most total, most whole manifestation. It is just everything. It is everything. It is unity. It is pure unity, pure oneness of all things. It is pure unconditional love. It is the complete and total lack of any kind of judgment, the complete and total lack of any kind of control. And part of that is also the understanding that nothing has ever gone wrong, and there is nothing that needs forgiveness. So the ultimate experience of this Black Moon Lilith in Pisces, or the 12th, is to transcend all of this, like to transcend all of it and get almost to that place of nothingness, right? It's almost the place of nothingness. It's the void. It is where everything has gone to dissolve, and now you're just out here, wandering in really nebulous, impossible to articulate Pisces land. So I am going to leave this one there and take a minute to just I'm taking a minute just to congratulate myself here, because this concludes my series on the Black Moon, on all the Black Moon Liliths, right? I did all 12 videos on Black Moon Lilith, and when I kind of started this willy-nilly, I was like, yeah, Lilith, it's because I'm having a Lilith kind of year. I've had lots of transits to my Lilith and all of that. And I was like, yeah, let's do 12 videos on Lilith. I didn't really think about the fact that then I would be tuning into all of this Lilith energy. So I am pleased. It's been really, really good, really great. I've learned a lot, and it's actually helped me on my own Lilith healing journey, because of course, I think you might find if you watch all of these videos, or if you just, explore in any way that you like, explore all of the Lilith energies, you find that you can relate a little bit to all of them, right? Because of course we have our own placements in our own birth charts, but our birth charts aren't everything about us. And think about it, every year you have a solar return chart. And think about all the different ways you can look at astrology, right? There's so many different systems, blah, 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 blah. If you expand everything out to the most expanded that everything is, in the Pisces way, right? If you get up to the highest possible echelons of your Black Moon Lilith in Pisces, you start to understand that everything's just everything, right? Everything's just oneness. So anyway, my point is that you're not just your Black Moon Lilith placement, you're also all of the other Black Moon Lilith placements. You can resonate with those to some degree at certain points in your life. And all of it, all of it. So yeah, I am putting to bed my exploration of Lilith energy for now, which is very satisfying and good to do. And I don't know what's next. We'll find out soon. So lots of links down below, guys. I'll talk to you later. Bye.